Guys, when you were a kid, what kind of father did you dream of having? Was it someone who showed up at every game? Or the one who knew how to make you feel safe when life got messy? Here's the truth. The father you needed back then is the man you need to become today. For your kids, for your wife, for your entire family, and for yourself.
Leaders are not born in a womb. They are forged through heat, pressure, and a whole lot of sweat. The Fire Forged Leader podcast serves the audience through exploring leadership at work, in the community, and with the family, using a practical perspective and real-life experiences from the host, Steve Baumgartner, and his guests in The Forge. Now, it's time to enter the Forge with the Fire Forged Leader.
You know, guys, when I think back to my teenage years, there's one thing that's clear. And that is, when I needed my dad the most, that's when. I was going through some of the toughest times of my life. The pain from my childhood before being adopted, the rejection, the abandonment that came from that. It was all bubbling to the surface when I was a teenager. It felt like the weight of my past was crashing down on me. And in the middle of it all, I didn't feel like I fit in anywhere in the town that we lived. I needed my father to step in, to be that role model, to guide me through the transition of boyhood to manhood. But he wasn't there. Not because he didn't care or didn't love me. I knew he did. But because life demanded sacrifices. You know, my mom was amazing, and she carried so much during that time. But there are certain things a boy can only learn from his father. My dad had recently changed careers during that time, a decision I know was driven by his strong work ethics. He did what he could do to continue to provide the life we were accustomed to. But that meant traveling a lot. Now, looking back, I respect him so much for the choices that he made, for his integrity and for his hard work. But as a teenager, all I felt was that absence, guys. I felt like I didn't have a father when I needed him the most. And in that void, I made the worst choices of my life. I didn't have the tools to deal with the pain I was carrying. And instead of processing those feelings, I buried them deep down. I covered them up the only way I knew how, and that was through my drug use. For a while, it numbed the hurt. It quieted the questions I didn't want to face, and it gave me a sense of belonging with the wrong crowd. But deep down, I knew it wasn't the answer. I was trying to fill a hole that only could be filled by something real: guidance, love, and a sense of purpose. I often wonder if my road would have been different if he had been more present. Would I have made better decisions? Would I have avoided some of those struggles? I don't know now. But what I do know is that I love my dad and I respect him deeply. And if he's listening to this, I want you to know that. He did the best he could with the cards that he had at the time. And for that, I am grateful. Here's the part that stings the most, though. I've made the same mistake as a father. I've had to make those hard choices between work and family, between providing and being present. And it's not easy. It's a struggle that many of us men face. But I've learned one thing through it all. Our kids don't just need us to provide for them. They need us to be there, to show up, to guide them through their struggles, even when it feels like we're stretched way too thin. Because when we step up, we become the father we needed when we were kids. Guys, you know me. I've made a ton of mistakes in my life, right? A lot of those were with fatherhood. And I want to share 5 things that I really learned through this act of fatherhood so that you don't have to repeat the same mistakes that I have. The first one is that presence is always better than perfection. All right? Your kids, They don't need you to have all the answers, okay? They don't need all the answers. What they do need is they need you to be present in their lives. They need you to be fully engaged. And sometimes that means working out the answers at the time. Presence isn't about the time either, guys. It's about the quality of your attention. It's not about the time, it's about the quality. So I need you to show up and be present for your kids. And how you do that is make sure that you're creating intentional time with your kids every single day, even if it's just 10 minutes of one-on-one interaction. And the younger that they are, I hate to say it like this, but the less time that they need, because they're not going to have the attention span for it anyways. But if you sit down and you draw with them, if they like to draw, if you go out and play catch with them, if they like to play catch, if your daughter wants to play dolls, play dolls. It doesn't matter what you like. What matters is the intentionality. And if you do what they like, you meet them where they're at. And while you're doing these things, I want you to ask some meaningful questions. Ask those kids some questions like, hey, what made you laugh today? Was there something funny that happened today? Or what's something that's been on your mind? What's one thing that you're really grateful for today? All those kind of questions are just things that get the ball rolling. And then you can ask follow-up questions after that, guys. It's great to get to know your kids. When you're with them, be with them. Put the damn phone away, close your laptop, and give them your damn undivided attention. Show them that they are your priority. So here's a practical tip for that. If you can possibly do it, schedule dad dates, okay? This can be with your son. Name it whatever the hell you want to name it. This can be with your son. It can be with your daughter. There is nothing better for my daughter than when she gets to dress up and go out on a date with dad. My hard time is trying to get that balance with my wife as well, because we don't get a lot of time together either. We have busy lives, we keep the kids going and everything else, but the intentionality matters. So when you set up these dad dates, let your kid pick the activity and just enjoy that time together. It doesn't have to be difficult or extreme or whatever. It has to be intentional. It can be as simple as a walk in the park or playing their favorite game. But be intentional. Did I say intentional? Be intentional. The second one is you need to lead your children with vulnerability. All right, vulnerability shows strength. All right, forget what you learned in the 80s. Vulnerability shows strength. It teaches your kids that emotions are normal and that working through them is a key part of their growth. Guys, there are so many times in my life where I thought that as a man, as a boy, I couldn't show emotions because that's not what we do. And that stunted my growth as a man so much. So what I want you to do is I want you to share age-appropriate stories and include things from your past, guys. This is so vitally important. I was just with one of my adult daughters last night in the car, and we were talking about my childhood. It was finally time for her to learn something new about me. And I say that like I've never shared anything. But this portion of the story, it was the time because she was sharing with me a similar emotion. But when you're sharing, I want you to explain how you how you overcame challenges. Because what you want to do is you want to make yourself relatable and approachable for your children. And you want to, at the same time, encourage your kids to share their feelings about a similar situation. So it needs to be age appropriate, but it also needs to be time appropriate. You want to create these spaces where they know they can talk to you without the fear of judgment, guys. And when you're relatable, it's a lot easier for them to do that. It's a lot easier for them to do that. When they know that you've made a mistake, that you weren't always perfect. I know you're not perfect now. I'm certainly not perfect. But your kids idolize you and they see you as perfect, especially if you're making this intentional time. So sometimes you got to tell them that, hey, that's not the way that it's always been. And here's just a tip to get that going, because it is awkward to start this. You can do family check-ins. And that's really a ritual that everyone shares one thing that they're grateful for, one thing that they're struggling with. And as the leader of your home, guess what? You get to go first. You get to set the tone for this conversation. You get to set the tone. Leaders go first. All right, the next one, the third one that I want to go over is, you guessed it, setting a vision for your family. All right, kids thrive when they know what their family stands for and where they belong. My wife actually started this mantra with our children. You know, the children, I don't know why. I think it's probably human nature, but they have this way of saying, that's too hard. That's difficult. I can't do that. And my wife started this mantra and I absolutely love it. But she says, Baumgartners do hard things. And when someone's saying that, you'll often hear one of my other children correct them. It doesn't even have to come from us anymore, but they're like, you can do it because Baumgartners do hard things, right? And those kind of things, those visions, those mantras, what they do is they clarify what your family stands for. And it creates a sense of stability and direction for your family. So have a conversation with your spouse and your kids and talk about values. Ask questions like, what do we want to be known for as a family? What kind of legacy do we want to leave? And write them down and revisit. Use them as a compass for your decision making, just like your personal vision. So sit down, write out this vision, this mission statement together. Make it arts and crafts, whatever appeals to your family. I don't care what it looks like. What matters is that it matters to your family, that it drives action. And what I want you to do is take that, whether it's a poster, whether it's arts and crafts, whether it's just writing, and I want you to display it somewhere. Put it on your fridge, put it on your wall, put it on your door. I don't care. Put it on everybody's door. Make sure that it's something that is shared with your entire family. The fourth thing is you need to teach resilience as a father. All right? And here's why it matters. Guys, you've probably noticed this. I'm sure you've noticed. Life's hard. All right? Life is hard. And your kids need to see how you handle adversity so they can learn to do the same. So a mantra that I have is that I tell everybody that I come into contact with to choose hard. And then I follow it up by saying, nothing, absolutely nothing in my life that is worth anything came easy. My marriage, which is one of the most important things in my life, has had a lot of challenges. And I absolutely love my wife. I love my marriage. And it's the one of the best things in my life. My faith, my marriage, my fatherhood, my work. It goes in that order. So when you show them this, they can learn to do the same, guys. So once again, you're going to share with your kids. You're going to share your challenges with your kids. Of course, age appropriate again, time appropriate, and involve them. Get them into brainstorming sessions. If you're stressed about work, talk about it. Explain how you're managing it constructively. Once again, I've been spending a lot of time with my adult daughter because I'm actually living in one of her spare rooms while my family is relocating. When she asked me a lot about work because she notices that I spend a lot of time at work right now. It is a new job and it requires a lot of attention. And she can also tell that it gives me some stress. And we talked about that last night. And we talked about, how I cope with that. And there's been some times I've texted her and I'm like, hey, Brooke, I'm not going to be home till later. I need to go and just have some time by myself and de-stress a little bit because I don't want to bring that into your house. But you need to model these things. You need to model healthy coping strategies, exercising, journaling, talking things out, and show them that it's okay to ask for help when they're stressed out, when they're feeling emotions. And celebrate, okay? Celebrate when you have failures that you've overcome. When you overcome something, that's when true growth happens. And you need to recognize the effort that takes and discuss what each individual family member learns. And make failure stepping stones and not shameful stones. Number 5 is show your kids love without limits, okay? We hear about unconditional love all the time. Unconditional love. I'm not saying don't discipline your kids. I'm not a damn leftist, okay? But you can show people love and disagree with their actions. You can show people love and discipline them for their actions. And it's a fine line sometimes, but it's also the foundation for your child's confidence and emotional health. So, I'm going to come back to that here in a minute. But I want you to be intentional about your affirmations with your children, okay? And this is a fine line because we also need to be fathers. And we're the disciplinarians most of the time. And we're the ones who hold the line. But you also need to be on the other side of that and tell them that you're proud of them when you're proud of them. And it's awkward, guys. It's awkward because we didn't get a lot of that growing up. Over the last 10, 15 years, I've heard my dad say that more than any time in my life. And I don't blame him. He grew up in the same situation. He learned what he learned. But you need to say things like, you know what, son? I love you no matter what you do. I love you no matter what you do. And they need to hear things like, hey, I believe in you, when they're going through something tough. I believe that you got the resilience, the capability to make it through this. And kids need to hear these words often. And I can't remember the exact statistics, but I think they say that someone needs to hear something positive 5 times for every 1 negative that they hear. So let's try that. I think it can change the world, guys. So express your love through actions, right? Attend their events. Leave encouraging notes. Spend quality time together. You can also start a bedtime tradition where you tell them one thing you love about them and one reason why you're proud of them. There's all sorts of things you can do, but make it consistent and make it part of your routine to show them this unconditional love. And then going back to what I was talking about before, if you discipline them, guys, if you discipline your kids, you need to come back around and talk about it again. They need to understand that just because you were upset with a decision that they made and you had to discipline them, that you still love them, that you still care about them. They need to understand why you disciplined them, but they also need to understand that they can come back from that. They need to understand that they can come back from that. As I'm getting to wrapping this up, guys, I wanted to share a story about one of my employees, and the story really stuck with me. He told me the other day about a practice his family does every single day, something they call the high-low meeting. Every evening, they sit down as a family, and everyone takes a turn sharing their high point and their low point of the day. You know, when he first introduced this idea to his family, his kids weren't into it at all. They gave him one-word answers, or they just shrugged their shoulders, and they didn't want to participate. But he stuck with it. Every single day, no matter how short or how simple the conversation was. And guys, over time, something changed. His kids started opening up. They really started sharing their highs and lows. And suddenly it wasn't just about what happened that day. They were talking about their feelings, their challenges, and what really mattered to them. Now, hearing him describe this was powerful. He said it's now the highlight of his day because it gives him a window into his kids' hearts and minds. And it's not always perfect. Some days the conversations are deeper, and sometimes they're a lot more shallow. But the consistency has built trust with his children. It's built a connection and build a space for his family to come together. So here's my challenge to you guys. Start your own version of a high-low meeting. It doesn't have to be complicated. Sit down with your kids tonight, ask them what their best and hardest moments were, and share yours too. Leaders go first. At first, it might feel awkward. That's okay. Stick with it. And over time, you're going to see those walls come down, and you're going to see the connection deepen. This one small habit can transform your relationship with your kids, and it doesn't cost a thing. Thank Henry for that one. One last short story, and we'll get this thing wrapped up here. So a couple short years ago, I realized it was time to make a change. It had taken me far too long to learn the lesson about being present, about being truly present for my wife and kids. I was working hard in a career that demanded so much of my time and energy, but deep down, I knew something had to give. My family needed me, and I needed to be there for them. So I made a tough decision. I switched job roles mid-career to create more space for my family. And it wasn't an easy choice, but it was the right one. That decision wasn't just about being physically home more often. It was also about showing up emotionally and mentally for my wife and for my kids. Who you are is far more important than what you do. And I wanted my kids and wife to feel that. It wasn't enough just to be in the house. I needed to be there, not glued to the TV, not scrolling through my phone, not out with my buddies all the time. My kids needed me, and my wife needed me to show up as the man I wanted to be. That change transformed my relationship with my family. I started having deeper conversations with my kids, making memories with them, and being the example of the man I hoped they would look up to one day. It's a daily choice to prioritize what truly matters. But every day, I see the impact of that choice in their eyes. All right, let's close this sucker out. So here's the first call to action. I told you before, and I'm going to tell you again. Start with one thing. Try that high-low meeting tonight. Ask your kids what their best and hardest moments were today, and share yours too. Like I said before, leaders go first. It's simple, but it's powerful, guys. Stick with it, even if it feels awkward at first. The second thing that I want you to do, if you feel called to do so, if you want to take it deeper, if you want to create a roadmap for becoming the father that you needed, to be the husband your wife needs, and to be that leader who goes out and provides at a high level for your family, I want you to join our Forged Leadership Blueprint, and I'll be hosting a webinar on January 28th to discuss the methodology in detail. So I want you to look for the link in the show notes. Let's build that legacy your kids deserve together, guys. And then last but not least, if this episode resonated with you, don't forget to comment, to like, to subscribe, to review, and rate this podcast. You know, your support helps us reach more men who are ready to step up and lead at home and at work. Let's spread the word and create just a community of strong, engaged fathers, husbands, and leaders out in the community.
You have just experienced the heat and pressure of the Forge. Remember, words without action are meaningless. Now, after the heat of the Forge, shape your thoughts, quench your brain, then put your new tools to use, adding to your leadership. Tune in next week for more lessons from the Forge.